Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 226. Laser focus now activated. If you've spent any time working in an open plan office, you'll know trying to maintain focus in the melee that surrounds you is an essential skill. Open plan offices are typically not conducive to introverts doing their best work. And if there's one thing my clients have in common, it's a desire to do what they do best whilst they are earning the king's shilling. I imagine we've all been frustrated by starting the day with a clear plan and an actionable to-do list, only to find ourselves frequently interrupted by banter, joshing and other non-productive chatter. And before you call me a killjoy, banter is rarely fun for everyone, as it's usually at someone's expense, I've found. And in an attempt to fit in, the person on the receiving end often feels they have to laugh along. We may never know the depth of the wound, though. Anyway, once interrupted and we lose our thread, it can take an age to get our focus back. And this is not just me being antsy here. It's not me getting on my introverted high horse, although there's an image for you. The time we take to get our focus back is longer than most of us would estimate. Research conducted by the University of California and quoted in Psychology Today, amongst other publications, found that it takes on average 23 minutes and 15 seconds to regain full focus after an interruption. Let me say that again, 23 minutes and 15 seconds. And most of us will get interrupted more than once a day. It's really no wonder our time disappears and we get to the end of the day feeling like we've achieved too little. I'm minded here of the change curve and what happens when we experience too many changes too close together. We never get to full integration and a level of high performance before the next change hits. Is that how it is with our focus and therefore our productivity? I'm trying to imagine what's worse in terms of interruptions, a whole batch together or scattered throughout the day. I can remember how frustrated I felt when I'd just be getting my train of thought and focus back when along came another interruption. Now, maybe extroverts cope better than we introverts here, but that's not really the point. Given that we're already overstimulated mentally, these constant interruptions can tip us over the edge. I suggest that we're already on the brink of overwhelm just by being in a busy open plan office, and now our focus is being hijacked to boot. Part of the problem is that as diligent managers and leaders, we want to be helpful to those learning in their careers. Heck, we even went through a stage of suggesting that an open door policy was a good thing. People would proudly pronounce that my door is always open. But what message does that send? My work isn't really that important, or I'm so smart that I can deal with your queries and maintain my focus and work rate. Just think about the number of managers who continue tapping away at their computers whilst assuring you that they're listening. Public service announcement, they're not listening effectively to you. And maybe finally the message it sends is that I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, so come on in. You'll provide a useful distraction. Now, I get it. No one wants to see someone struggle, and that includes me. But rest assured, I will soon struggle if you expect me to have an open door policy and be at everyone's beck and call. And there are other implications which I have witnessed firsthand. The more we're on tap for everyone, the more dependent on us they become. If it's a choice between thinking it through and working it out for myself or asking someone else for a quick response, most people will ask. We seem to value instant input over learned and embedded knowledge. That creates a big problem in terms of resilience and resourcefulness, and I accept there's a fine line to walk here. So, my fellow introverted leaders, we have an important choice to make, and therefore an important message to communicate. Do we allow others to interrupt our time, and as a result we get less done, work after hours to meet our commitments, put up with the increased stress and its consequences? Or do we do what's needed to enable us to focus and do our best work? I know which one I'll choose. So let's explore how we can manage ourselves so that we can refocus and bring our attention to where it needs to be. Clearly, there are also things that we can do to help our colleagues and loved ones, but I'm going to start with the self because that's the only place we really have control. Now let me be clear about what I mean by laser focus and why it's important. Laser focus is the ability to concentrate intensely on a single task while filtering out distractions. You can see now why it's important for introverts to be able to find this focus. Having laser focus is integral to the concept of flow introduced by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. If you followed me for a while, you'll have heard me talk about his concept of flow before. As a reminder, flow is the joyful mental state of deep immersion and engagement in an activity such that time becomes immaterial. In essence, it's when we experience immense satisfaction at being able to lose ourselves in an activity, including our work. I've had a hypothesis for some time that introverts probably find it easier to get into flow as we don't need mental stimulation from others. Interestingly, there is research that shows that there are those who find flow easier to access. It's proposed they find it easier because they've developed an autotelic personality. Interesting word. The etymology of this term is from the Greek words autos, self, and telos, goal. Autotelics tend to do things for their own sake, in pursuit of intrinsic goals rather than for short-term gratification in the name of an externally validated goal. From my perspective, this is reason enough to establish our purpose in life and what really motivates us. That's where the frustrated to flourishing journey always starts, and why I recommend all of those considering this program to have a synergy call with me. It's during this call that we establish if it's the right thing and the right time for you. Having clarity about our purpose and motivation gives us access to something else that's really exciting from my perspective, because as you'll have gathered, we can develop our autotelic personality. Let me share the essentials. Number 1, focus on goals that are intrinsic and deeply rooted in your values. Number 2, immerse yourself fully in your work or activity. Number 3, maintain unwavering attention. And number 4, find real enjoyment in what you're doing. I say so often during my courses with my corporate clients just how important it is to find work that you enjoy. We typically spend more time at work than we do with our loved ones, and if we're miserable at work, we're more likely to be miserable to live with. I see 3 very real problems with those 4 essentials. Firstly, goals are all too often imposed by managers, whereas co-creating them would increase the connection to your personal values. The workplace itself, with its open plan offices, incessant meetings, instant messaging and email interruptions, plus smartphone addiction, can make our immersion and unwavering attention virtually impossible. And finally, without being able to enjoy how we spend our time and exercise our creativity, our days, weeks, months and years at work can seem like a prison sentence. And I'm keen that our enjoyment comes not from belittling others and microaggressions, but from choosing to be playful in how we view ourselves and how we approach our own tasks. Play is an attitude, not an activity. There's one additional huge benefit to finding your flow state, which frankly blew my mind. Research shows that being in a flow state naturally tunes out our inner critic. I know, how brilliant is that? But how so, I hear you say? Well, here's the neuroscience bit, so hang on to your hats. When we're in a flow state, the prefrontal cortex, which regulates our thoughts, actions and emotions, is believed to down-regulate or become less active. It's this process that probably distorts our sense of time and the loss of self-consciousness and the tuning out of our inner critic. Woohoo! Anything to calm that Gladys of mine. So, how do we enhance our chances of accessing our flow state? Firstly, create a distraction-free environment wherever possible, even if only for part of the day. I'll bet you're aware of what's available to you already. Make use of the quiet spaces, including those single-person cubbies in the office, or wear noise-cancelling headphones if your organisation is amenable. Secondly, have prioritised plans for your time so you're less likely to flit or multitask. The Eisenhower matrix is a really useful way to prioritise your workload. There is a caveat to this though, which is that some people do really well flitting. My accountability buddy Maria is one of those. I flit when my inspiration has dried up, and no amount of trying hard to focus will hasten its return. Thirdly, carve out at least 90 minutes of undisturbed time at least once a week to engage in something that you really enjoy. Flow, it seems, is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes. So make sure that you allow yourself to do things just for pleasure and no other reason. Fourthly, leverage your natural rhythm by doing important tasks when you're at your most mentally alert. For me, this is early in the morning, as I'm a lark and not an owl. I find that when I have to do things later in the evening, I probably have to redo them. Fifth, time block by using techniques like Pomodoro and schedule them in your calendar. I typically work in 45-minute bursts with little breaks in between. The breaks are important, ironically. And align this with your prioritised plan, knowing that you may need additional breaks in some instances. Sixth, ensure that there is correct balance between challenge and skill. Too much challenge unmatched by your skill creates anxiety, and too little challenge for your skill leads to boredom. And don't confuse boredom with just being. Doing nothing is essential every now and again. Seventh, set aside time daily for replenishing and recovery. It's almost as though this list were made for introverts, right? As we spend far too much time in front of screens, the recommendation is that this is tech-free time. No social media, no TV, no gaming. Now, this might be quite a challenge as many introverts love gaming or scrolling. I know that I don't replenish just by vegging, and these days I appreciate that I recharge best when engaging in something practical that's not screen-based. So if you want to experience that laser focus, whether through flow or your own methods, appreciate that it usually requires an intentional approach. The 1 to 7 steps that I've just mentioned are tough to start with, I know. But by actively looking for and creating that laser-focused flow state, we'll reap the many benefits. Take steps to organise your week this way, and you'll find you access flow more readily day by day. and my team will be delighted to hear that I'm finally on the same page as them. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here to propose that one of the reasons there is so much unhappiness in the world and in the workplace is because the pace of life and social constructs make flow so difficult to achieve, especially for we introverts. Achieving laser focus and the joyful state of flow is an intentional choice, a journey, not a destination. For mid-career introverts, the ability to maintain deep concentration amidst a world full of distractions is a crucial skill that can unlock new levels of productivity and professional success. By understanding your unique needs and implementing tailored strategies, you can cultivate your own state of laser focus that allows you to flourish in all aspects of your life. And that can only be a good thing. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.